What is Polkadot? So when I think of Polkadot, this is what I think of. I think this is literally Polkadot producing over 23 million blocks on average every 6 seconds. And this is Polkadot. Boom, done. Right? In one way, like, yes, this is Polkadot, but there's a lot more to it, right? Polkadot's a lot more involved. I like to think of Polkadot as a world computer. And it's not the first world computer, right? Ethereum is a world computer. Polkadot's slightly different. So Polkadot is a decentralized world computer. It's a resilient supercomputer. Um, and Polkadot has a different architecture, right? So what we're looking at here is the Polkadot relay chain. It has uh, number one functionality is to finalize parachain blocks. So parachains are L1 blockchains that are connected with this Polkadot relay chain. So if I look at any of these blocks, if I click in here, you can see that it's finalizing, it's including the parachains block, in this case, parachain with ID 3367. It's including that the block here, the pair head, you can see it there. Okay. So it's the relay chain's main duty here is to finalize, put that final stamp on the parachains block, right? And if we can see that there are many parachains that are connected to this relay chain, to the Polkadot relay chain, you can see Asset Hub, collectives, and so on. Each one of these is a parachain, an L1 blockchain. Each one is a blockchain. Like this one here is an EVM blockchain. All right. This one here is like an identity blockchain that holds identities. This one holds collectives, like on-chain collectives. This one holds assets for Polkadot, so different types of assets. So each one here is a parachain. So Polkadot, you can think of now is consists of a relay chain, which I showed you. It's producing blocks, and its role is to secure all these parachains, right? So how does it secure these parachains? It does it through its validators, right? So the validators takes each, so every time a parachain produces a block, it sends it to the relay chain. It says, hey, finalize this block. I want you to finalize it. So who's doing the finalization? Well, it's the protocol, right? How is the protocol sustained? It's through these servers that we call validators that take the parachain's block that it submitted, and it'll re-execute it, and it'll say, okay, we re-executed, the outcome was the same, and now we're going to finalize it, right? And what makes these validators participate in the protocol is an economic incentive. So each one of these validators has a lot of skin in the game in the form of tokens, dot tokens, right? It has that's why we call it a proof of stake protocol, because it's got a lot of stake in this protocol. So it wants to make sure that it behaves according to the protocol and not behave maliciously. Because if it does behave ignorantly, like against the protocol, it'll get slashed. It'll get fined a very large amount. So it's in its best interest, if it wants to like participate in the game, right, to act accordingly. So that's how the protocol keeps going in a decentralized way across the world, right? So number one, Polkadot is a resilient network that spans the world, right? And ideally, Polkadot is a place where one can build Web3 applications. That's where it's heading, right? Polkadot 1.0, you could say 1.0 slash 2.0 is, so how do you build these applications? Well, you had to build them as a parachain, these blockchains. So if you wanted to participate and, play with Polkadot, you'd have to build a parachain. And we learned the hard way that it's not easy to build a blockchain, a parachain, right? So secondary way would be like, for example, Moonbeam here. Like I said, it's an EVM contract chain. You could deploy a smart contract on Moonbeam, and Moonbeam is secured by the Polkadot relay chain. So as a side effect, you buy into that security, but you get to play on Polkadot, right? So that was the alternative, right? Like either you build a parachain, and that's one way to play on Polkadot, or you use an already existing parachain and you use one of its services, right? So that's all to build Web3 applications, right? So where Polkadot is going to head is the idea that at the end of the day, like what these parachains are purchasing with the relay chain, right? They're purchasing what we call core time. So compute power uh, on Polkadot. That's what they're purchasing, right? So you think of these validators, right? They have to execute these parachain blocks to include them, right? So that takes CPU power from the validators, right? So that's what these parachains, they have to purchase that core time. So either they buy the core time in bulk, like I want 1 month's worth of core time and they pay it in dot token, or they buy it instantaneously, like as needed on demand. Okay. So you may have heard that Polkadot's new latest and greatest new thing is jam, right? Like, well, you need somewhere to spread the jam, right? So we're gonna Polkadot is the underlying thing. So jam is gonna take Polkadot to the next level, right? By it's basically the idea that like, okay, what if we could just like run services directly on these cores, right? It's a little bit of that. It's kind of like that. So what if we could bypass parachains completely? What if we could bypass smart contracts, the concept of smart contracts completely, and just run uh, code on bare metal, right, on these cores? So that's where we're heading with Polkadot, and that lowers the barrier to entry, right? You don't need to figure out how to build a blockchain now. You can just think of like Lambda functions on AWS. You just write some service, some function in your favorite programming language, and you execute it on the core. You purchase the core time and boom, you execute it, right? As a service, you could say, right? That's where it's heading. Currently, where it's at though is here, right? What we're looking at, like you have parachains. Parachains have services that you can utilize to build on Polkadot, right? The other thing that I want to point out when I think about Polkadot, like what is Polkadot, is governance. So I would say like it's probably one of the biggest wins for Polkadot, like something that it was intentional, but I think that like it really it really shines and it doesn't get enough attention actually, in my opinion, across crypto. That Polkadot has perhaps the most sophisticated, I think it is the most sophisticated governance system in all of Web3. It's an iterative governance system, meaning it can evolve. It's on chain and it can be upgraded and modified because creating governance is not easy. And it's an effective governance system. So it's called OpenGov. The whole stack of governance on Polkadot, it's called OpenGov. And it works with the treasury. So like if we look at the treasury here, Polkadot has a treasury, right? It's got currently 12 million that's available to spend, and every 24 days that money is sent to the proposals that have been approved. So part of that governance is that one could, like a team, say like you have a really good idea of like how to improve Polkadot, right? A project to build for Polkadot. Um, One could create a proposal, on-chain proposal, using a multi-sig account or their own account, on-chain account, and they would say, I want to build this, or we want to build this. And then the community goes about and starts voting on that proposal. And there's an intricate governance system for voting, voting mechanism. And either at the end of the day, that proposal is denied or approved. And if it's approved, then it gets added to the queue so that when the spend period hits, that allotted amount that they requested gets sent to them in the form of tokens, right? So this is all permissionless. This is pretty cool and it works. And there are off-chain components to this. So like when we discuss like what is Polkadot, I think it's important to discuss like also like Polkadot is much more than just like the relay chain or these parachains, right? Like it even encompasses some of these off-chain components. So like a lot of these governance proposals that are constantly coming in, right? Who's reviewing that, right? So there are off-chain, like for example, there's a great group called the Kusumerian, and this is their Twitter account, right? And they're constantly like publishing content and constantly discussing with the community like different proposals, different on-chain activities that are happening. So this is part of Polkadot, like this is the community, right? and people are talking. You can see there, right? They're talking, they're discussing, like, is this proposal like important? Should we support this, or is it not such a great proposal, right? So this is how the network is evolving. This is part of Polkadot, and at the end of the day, it has a footprint that's on chain, right? And they have a YouTube channel too, and you can see they have a series called AAG that discusses governance, Polkadot governance. The other part of Polkadot, I kind of hinted at, like you have these parachains. So if we look at the parachains, these parachains are like specialized blockchains, right? So like we have one called collectives. So in collective, uh, you can use this parachain to create a collective, right? A group, an on-chain group, right? And one of the most important ones is the technical fellowship. So the technical fellowship, they're an on-chain group that are kind of like the stewards, the technical stewards for Polkadot. And you can see this is the group here. They have different ranks, which is pretty cool. You can read up on the ranks. These are on-chain ranks, right? And the idea is that they can get salaries as well, income to support their work, right? Based on their rank. So there's different like how do you say requirements for you to get to a certain rank. And when you get to a certain rank, you get more privileges, the on-chain privileges. All right. And so this is pretty amazing. Like I haven't seen this done anywhere else. Like this is really cool because like this is how the network is going to get evolved, right? This is how the network evolves because this is a technical fellowship, right? They do have limitations to their decision making and what they can do and what their role is. There are other groups as well that exist that aren't technical that help. Like if you think of like ambassadors, right? Polkadot ambassadors, they're essential, right? So it's all these different ingredients that you use to grow Polkadot, right? So Polkadot isn't just this blockchain here that I showed you that's producing blocks, right? It's much more than that. You're starting to see that it's much more than just this, right? So the fellowship also has the Kusumerian that helps with this. They have their, I believe it's a monthly call where they discuss Polkadot, the technical aspects of Polkadot, and how we want to pioneer and move Polkadot forward. And it's really interesting. You can see it's videos and people are there and discussing their opinions. And this is how Polkadot's evolving. Because Polkadot, when Polkadot was being built, it was built with Substrate framework, the Rust Substrate framework. It was kind of like uh, as they were building Polkadot, they were building Substrate, and as Substrate was improving, like it was kind of a back and forth. But the Substrate framework is a blockchain framework. It's a Rust blockchain framework, and it's built in a way that from day zero, that one can build a blockchain that can evolve. One can build a blockchain that's upgradable, so that the logic, the runtime logic, the actual business logic of the blockchain is compiled onto WASM, WebAssembly, and it's uploaded to the chain. So if you want to upgrade the blockchain, you just write some Rust code to change the logic, and then you compile it to WebAssembly, and then you replace the WebAssembly in the chain. So that's how you upgrade the blockchain. That's how you upgrade Polkadot. That's how Polkadot upgrades. And it's been all upgraded, I don't know how many, ridiculous number of times. So it evolves, right? Governance evolves, right? The tech behind Polkadot evolves. So I think that's important to note when we talk about what is Polkadot, right? It's an evolvable blockchain, right? But then again, we said it's a global supercomputer that has this core time, this compute time that you can say, like, I want to deploy this logic to Web3, right? To the Web3 cloud. So you can think of Polkadot as becoming this Web3 cloud that you can deploy logic to, right? You can build the next generation of applications on, right? Everything that we see nowadays in software, right? We want it to be built, the next phase of that in this Web3 cloud, right? That's what Polkadot is. Polkadot is expanding to be this Web3 cloud of not only compute, but storage, all these Web3 components that are essential to building these effective applications, right? So going back, what else is Polkadot? Well, when I think of Polkadot myself, I can't like there is no definition in my head without showing you this, right? The Polkadot SDK repo. This is Polkadot. This is literally Polkadot. Like this is a Polkadot SDK. This is the Polkadot code base. All right, so it's an open source repo. It's really big. It's one of the biggest open source projects out there. And you can see the latest releases here, and you can follow along and see like the pull requests. It's pretty cool issues, and you can contribute. Like, it's pretty cool that you can be a part of this Web3 cloud that's being created, this supercomputer, right? This world computer that's resilient, right? That's being forged as we speak, right? That it's working. Like the other thing that I like to say is like, you know, it the computer it's running, right? It's out there. We may not say that like we still haven't figured out like, all right, what do we want to use this world computer for? In my opinion, it seems to be like we kind of want to build this Web3 cloud of like infrastructure, right? That we can deploy the next generation of software, right? Trustless software. But there still hasn't been any catalyst, in my opinion, for the world to shift in that direction, right? So that's more of a philosophical point of view. I think that we aren't quite sure exactly what we're building for, right? It's kind of like in Web 2 when there was the internet and people were like, what are we going to build on this internet? And how could one possibly say, well, we're going to build Google, we're going to build Amazon, and we're going to build Facebook during that period? Nobody knew that that was going to happen, that that was going to be the future, that the future would be these iPhones and Android phones. People would be looking at this, right? And consuming and interacting, right? Nobody could have possibly imagined. So at this point, we're just building an infrastructure of Web3, right? Um, and it works, right? So the idea is that from here, you may have heard about Jam, the Jam protocol. Jam is an expansion of Polkadot. Jam is the ability to create a global supercomputer that can scale to global levels of data consumption. Uh, a true global computer that has incredible amounts of processing power and one that's accessible, right? Not only resilient, which we already obtained that with Polkadot 1.0/2.0, but one that is uh, you don't need to build a blockchain or you don't need to write necessarily a smart contract. You can if you want, that will still exist, but you can simply like write some Python code and like get your code on chain, right? Or whatever your favorite programming language is. So that's where it's heading. So that's about it that I wanted to cover about Polkadot because there's so much more. Like you can go so much more in depth into each one of these components. But high level, I think I covered all the little bullet points that I wanted to cover. If you want to know more about Polkadot, I recommend watching the Polkadot, subscribe to the Polkadot channel on YouTube. And there's some great videos on there, especially some of the older ones are some of my favorites. Parity, the company who built Polkadot, they also have some great YouTube uh, videos. Also, the other thing, like when I think of Polkadot, I also think about the substrate stack exchange. So to me, this is also part of Polkadot because this is where it's like the community will go for technical questions and answers, right? So this is part of the Polkadot community, even though this isn't a Polkadot website. To me, it's still part of like um, how people learn and how people debug stuff and how people build on Polkadot, right? So to me, that's all part of Polkadot as well. Okay. So thank you and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.